Nice truck. What's the retail on one of those?
More than you can afford, pal. Tacoma.
The Tacoma TRD Off-Road has always been the truck for everyman enthusiasts. But many were upset about the staggering price tag on the new one. Some even claimed you'd be better off buying a 3rd gen and spend the savings on mods. But after my detailed tests and measurements, I think the new one was misunderstood. So in this video, let's put emotions aside and do a technical comparison of the old versus new. How did Toyota build a better Tacoma that can actually resonate with the real enthusiast? And more importantly, how do they even justify that huge price difference? Alright, let's get started. The first key metric for an off-road truck is clearance. The new TRD Off-Road comes with 1 inch larger tires than the 3rd gen. So most numbers got better. For example, the approach angle improved from 32 degrees to 32.5. But here's the issue. You could easily run that 4th gen tire size on the 3rd gen with no modifications. So to actually compare clearance, we installed a set of 265/70R17 on this otherwise stock 3rd gen. We then painstakingly lined up both trucks by the center of the front tires so that we could do a precise overlay like this. Well, after both trucks were on an equal footing, the 3rd gen's approach angle turned out slightly better. Although the new truck has a shorter front overhang, the new bumper hangs much lower for aerodynamics. And if we do an overlay from the front, you can see the 4th gen has much less clearance in front of the tires. In practice, clearance at this corner is even more critical than the approach angle, because this is how you typically approach an obstacle. As you can see, the difference is very noticeable.
Oh shit! It hit the front bumper.
These nuanced practical differences are what you don't get from the spec sheet, but now you know. Okay, let's move to the middle of the truck. Here we can visualize one of the biggest changes in the new generation. The wheelbase is 4.5 inches longer, so it took a big hit on breakover angle. Toyota had to do this because the rear suspension changed from leaf springs to multi-link with coil springs, and those links takes up more space front to back. If we zoom in here, we found the new lower link hangs much lower than the leaf springs. On the 3rd gen, this mounting bracket was fully tucked away, but on the 4th gen, it hangs completely below the frame rail. And paired with the longer wheelbase, this became a very easy spot to get hung up on. Man, sounds like you'd be better off getting a 3rd gen. Well, not so fast. There are actually 2 critical improvements on the new truck we cannot ignore. First, although the 3rd gen has a better breakover angle, the real limiting factors are this exhaust crossover and the transfer case, both of which hang below the frame rail. The most common solution is to protect them with a skid plate, like what my friend did on his green 3rd gen. But that actually further reduced the clearance. In comparison, the same components on the 4th gen now tuck completely above the frame rail, giving us a true flat belly. To achieve a flat belly on a 3rd gen, one would need a custom exhaust reroute and clocking the transfer case. Especially for the transfer case, it requires some highly customized fabrications. So most of us didn't even consider that feasible. It was truly reserved for the top 1% of enthusiasts. Another big 4th gen improvement is the wheel well opening. As you can see, the 4th gen has much more tire clearance all the way around. With the correct wheel offset, one can easily fit 34s or narrow 35s. This will greatly offset the shortcomings mentioned earlier. To properly fit those on the third gen, meaning we still maintain full suspension travel and look somewhat decent, we will need something like the C4 oversized tire fitment kit. Again, a lot of cutting and welding involved. So a lot of third gens out there are actually running large tires at the expense of suspension travel. In my opinion, the flat belly and large wheel well address some of the biggest pain points of the older generations. What used to be advanced level mods are now standard for everyone. But these alone cannot justify the $14,000 price difference. So let's compare the second key off-road metric, suspension flex. We simulated a control cross-axle using 2 giant service ramps. We drove up the ramps until the tires broke traction. Then we measure how much each tire moved up or down. The third gen's front passenger side drooped down 2.3 inches, while the driver's side compressed 1.9. So in total, the independent front suspension flexed 4.2 inches. But as you can see, the driver's side did not make contact with the bump stop. So we didn't utilize the full suspension travel. It was limited by the front stabilizer bar. On the other hand, the solid rear axles was fully flexed out. It had 5.8 inches of compression and 7.2 inches of droop, a total of 13 inches of rear articulation. Now, let's measure the new Tacoma. Interestingly, the numbers at 3 out of the 4 corners turn out a little lower. So in terms of total articulation, the third gen was 1 inch better. But if we compare them with the visual overlay, that looks like way more than just 1 inch. Did we miss something? Actually, we did. But before we dive into that, I want to thank Onyx Off-Road for sponsoring this video. You're gonna see a lot more off-road comparison later in this video. For those footage, we went to Rouch Creek Off-Road Park in Pennsylvania. It has a spider web of trails from green to black. So I was constantly checking Onyx to make sure we stay on the green trails. After all, I don't want to bang up this bone stock press vehicle from Toyota. What the hell? I thought X3 was supposed to be green. Oh, wait a minute. It actually says X3 is a challenging rocky green trail. Driving a stock vehicle on this trail presents a challenge to avoid banging and scraping. Well, I should have read that earlier. So, if you also want to better enjoy your off-road trips, give Onyx Off-Road a try. You can use code TINKER or the link in description for 20% off your first year of membership. I would like to thank Onyx for supporting my channel. I also want to give a big shout out to my friend Con from 4-Wheel Drive is Life channel. He helped a lot in filming this episode. Go check out his channel for more comparison of these two Tacomas. Now, let's get back to suspension flex. So why on earth did 1 inch difference look so drastic? That was because we overlooked one huge variable, the frame. These numbers were calculated from the fender gap on top of the tire, so they measure only the suspension flex. But as you can see, the bed on the third gen was noticeably twisting because it had an open C-channel frame. Whereas the fourth gen has way less movement because it switched to a fully boxed frame, and that is way more rigid. The new frame came with many other benefits, but just in terms of articulation, the third gen performed a lot better thanks to its flexible frame. See, you'll be better off buying a third gen. Well, except the fourth gen has an ace up its front suspension. The brand new front stabilizer disconnect mechanism, SDM. So it is flexed right now. Sway bar disconnect, go. Okay. So let's go forward.
Okay, didn't do anything.
Looks like it cannot disconnect under load. So let's back it down and try again. Ah, yes, much better. With the front sway bar disconnected, the passenger side drooped an extra 2 inches, and the driver side compressed an extra 1.8. So the front suspension flex was doubled from 4 to 8 inches. A huge difference from before. It even surpassed the 3rd gen with frame flex included. The SDM is a $1,200 option. Many people weren't sure if it was worth it, but now you know. The 3rd gen never had a true sway bar disconnect. The best aftermarket solution is the Quick Links by Apex design. But because of how the 3rd gen sway bar was mounted, the Quick Links can only unlock roughly 80% of the travel. The install also requires cutting and welding, so many still choose to remove the front sway bar altogether. Of course, at the expense of highway safety. But even with the front sway bar removed, a 3rd gen still wouldn't match the new TRD Off-Road. This is because the entire new front suspension is wider. Essentially, it's like having a mini long travel kit straight from the factory. The CV axles were also updated from a tripod inner joint to a double offset joint, which is stronger and can operate to higher angles. At the time of making this video, the only way to have this type of axle on a 3rd gen is to buy the RCV axles. But they cost a whopping $2,300 and require a lot more maintenance. So in terms of suspension flex, Toyota made some fundamental improvements, bringing some of the top dollar mods to the everyman enthusiast. But probably not enough to justify $14K. So let's do one more round of comparison. Off-road controls. Here we had a mild hill climb with some moguls, so I engaged multi-terrain select on the 3rd gen and chose rock mode. This should give us the least amount of wheel spin. As you can see, the MTS kicked in almost immediately. However, it took a while to build up enough traction to move the truck forward. I maintained a steady throttle the entire time, and you could hear MTS kept trying.
Let's go. Let's go, baby.
But it couldn't sustain a steady traction, so the truck was struggling. It did eventually make it through, but that was a lot of wheel spin. In many situations, this much wheel spin will make you slide sideways into some dangerous situation. That is why I installed a front locker in my FJ, and I was very disappointed the new Tacoma still didn't come with one. But I was pleasantly surprised by the new MTS. For the same obstacle, the new system achieved higher traction sooner and sustained it much better. As you can see, we did have some wheel spin, but the truck almost didn't slow down at all. I do want to point out that the extra front suspension flex also helped in these obstacles. So the difference we saw was the combination of both. However, the improvement in crowd control can be seen all on its own. The old system was loud and often jerked the truck around.
Don't use your brake.
I don't like it.
Don't use your brake.
I didn't do it. It's the car.
Oh shit.
While the new system was near silent and much smoother. But the key difference was when we need to climb over a ledge.
Go, 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 go. Go, go, go. It's stuck. It's not moving.
The old system was simply stalled.
All right, give it more speed. Speed? No? All right, give it some gas. Woo!
But that lurched the truck forward kind of abruptly, so I also had to catch it with my own brake. Then what's the point of crowd control? With the new crowd control, I can actually hear the truck slowly ramps up the throttle. And steadily climb up. And the impressive part is, after we went over the hump, the system seamlessly caught it and brought the truck down with great control. Heck, it probably had better throttle control than me. You can see how smooth I was going through these long rocky hill climbs. It was all crowd control. Near the end of this rock garden, I got hung up on the lower link. Of course, but you know what? Let's see how far we can push the system.
Okay. Crowd control. Let's let it do its thing. Woo!
Very impressive. Well, except the lower link mount wasn't too happy. Sorry, Toyota. The multi-terrain monitor on this giant screen also turned out surprisingly useful. For this rock garden, I had to spot the third gen the entire way down.
Nice. Oh.
But I was able to do it all by myself, solely relying on the cameras. Overall, I absolutely love every single off-road upgrades we reviewed earlier. But for 55 grand, it's still a bit much for a Tacoma. However, if we remove the last feature, the multi-terrain monitor, while keeping everything else, this truck will only cost $45,625. That just sounded a lot more reasonable. This was because the MTN was exclusive to this $8,800 premium package, which also includes soft-text ventilated front seats, power tailgate, and the pop-out JBL speaker. These are the flashy features the third gen never had, and honestly, most of us didn't need. But in most car reviews, these were the main focus, sometimes the only focus. At the same time, Toyota themselves also didn't communicate well to the real enthusiast. For example, until I did my own measurements, it was never clear how much the SDM actually helped. As a result, it kinda created a misunderstanding that the new Tacoma is all about bells and whistles. Of course, people will be upset. But no, you don't have to get those fancy stuff if they are not for you. For 45 grand, you will actually get a true flat belly, big wheel well for large tires, true sway bar disconnect, long travel IFS with upgraded axles, and much better traction controls. Plus, we didn't even cover the benefits of the fully boxed frame, multi-link rear suspension, bigger front brakes, and modernized rear brakes. So all that for just 5 grand over a 2023, I don't know about you, but I think that's a solid deal. Now, you might be wondering, okay, Mr. YouTuber, if the new Tacoma is so good, why don't you buy one yourself? I'm glad you asked. You should go watch this video to learn why I didn't buy the new Tacoma and what I bought instead. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one.